recently, I've been amused by the reports that the Canadian government has issued some kind of Arctic Ocean policy. And in this report, the Canadian government actually accused China together with Russia for something that they called as violation of peace and stability in the Arctic Ocean. It is true that Canada is a littoral state of the Arctic Ocean. Allow me to emphasize one point, which is very important. Arctic Ocean does not belong to the United States or to Canada. There are littoral Arctic states, of course, but there are also other countries like China, by virtue of their signatory status involving the Scarborough Treaty, for example. They are fully entitled and empowered to operate in the Arctic Ocean. That's number one. Number two is that by whatever that's happening in the Arctic Ocean, peaceful or non-peaceful, China will have its direct interest immediately impacted upon those operations in the Arctic Ocean. Whatever that is being talked about involving the Arctic Ocean, the Northern Passageway or the Eastern Passageway, for example, are mostly sailing across the Russian coastline or across the Canadian coastline, will all have one destination, that is China. Quite a few years ago, when the Arctic Ocean was actually opened for commercial shipping, the first ship starting somewhere from Norway, going through the Arctic Ocean, more or less hovering the coastline of the Russian Federation, eventually came all the way to China. And I would say from countries in East Asia, including, for example, Japan and the Republic of Korea and China's Taiwan province and several other countries and regions, for example, we all welcome such commercialization of the maritime shipping involving the Arctic Ocean. And given the size and the impact of China as a whole, the largest trading nation in the world, the further commercialization of the Arctic Ocean for peaceful purposes definitely will be supported by China. Further, the rapid climate change, especially involving the Arctic Ocean, the melting ice, for example, will have an impact on all mankind. From the Chinese perspective, how to promote new and sustainable sources of energy, for example, wind or solar or tidal or many other ways of sustainable energy, will definitely be driven for one purpose only, that is to cut down on emission and to raise awareness about the impact of the climate change, and also motivating mankind as a whole to take the right thing and do the right thing in facing the consequences of the climate change. That means cooperation globally, as well as sometimes in particular involving the Arctic Ocean, will be a huge responsibility for China to perform. And I would say all the littoral states and non-littoral states like China need to cooperate in the fullest sense of the word to make sure that the Arctic Ocean will be increasingly used for peaceful purposes, and military engagement involving Arctic Ocean need to be transparent and need to be really serving the fundamental interest of peace rather than catastrophe for mankind as a whole. And China has been playing its constructive role for many, many decades in the Arctic Ocean, and China has all the legitimate reasons to be there, because whatever that happens in the Arctic, peace or otherwise, will have a direct bearing on China. And China is also an observer state of the Arctic Council, and I hope China cooperation in the Arctic Ocean will not only be with Russia or Norway, but also with Canada. China is there. Canada, wake up. Don't pretend that China is not interested or has a vested interest in the Arctic Ocean. It is time for Canada to stretch out its hand and cooperate with China, rather than pretending that China has nothing to do with the Arctic Ocean.